Hi everyone! I'm sure you've seen or heard the news lately. California is being strongly advised to shelter in place due to the COVID-19 virus. Most places are closed as of right now, so there's scarce things to go out and do anyways if you wanted to go out. This is a great time to stay home and complete some things that you've had on a to-do list for a while. One of those things might be starting a garden. So today I'm here to talk with you about starting your own garden at home. This is based on not only my own personal experiences of growing plants, but also my experiences in other plant science classes here at MJC, as well as learning some things from the research needed to complete this speech. So to start a garden first requires some thought to consider the direction your garden is headed. Once you've decided the type of garden you'll be growing, it's important to remember the 3 P's of planting. This is a system that I came up with and something that we'll dive into in just a minute. After you've successfully planted, you'll want to check back in on your garden frequently to make sure that you're properly caring for your plants. So there are many things to consider before jumping right in. First thing you want to ask yourself is, do you want to grow perennials or annuals? Tammy Wiley, author of Raised Bed Gardening for Beginners, published in 2019, explains the difference between these two in an easy-to-understand fashion. So she says that a perennial has a shorter bloom time but returns every year. An annual plant has a longer bloom time but need to be replanted each year. Bloom time means exactly what you think, the flowers. So to give you a quick example here, I do have an annual here. This is an alyssum, and on the seed packet itself, it did tell me that it was going to be an annual. It's growing quite nicely. It is an outdoor plant. I have been growing it inside. It's doing great, but this is just one of many examples that I'll have to show you. So the next question you want to ask yourself is, what kind of plant? Flowers or vegetables? Both need about 6 to 8 hours of light on average, according to Eleanor Perrigny, author of Green Thoughts, A Writer in the Garden, published in 2002. I really like the way that she gave you an on average, because most plants that you're going to plant don't survive in the shade very well. You have to make sure that you're looking at the variety of that if you're going to want to grow them in a shaded spot in your garden outside, or in a shaded corner here inside in your house. The next question leads right into what I was just talking about. Do you want to grow an inside garden or an outside garden? This is really important to consider because you need to take into factor the sun requirements of the plant, the temperature requirements of the plant, and if it can be grown inside or outside. I will tell you though, again, I do defy that. You can grow outside plants inside. However, it is not recommended. When planting, I came up with my own helpful guide of following the 3 P's. So let's jump into it. The first P is prep it, place it, and plant it. So the first P, prep it. You're going to prepare your soil by pulling any weeds if growing outside. And if growing inside, you're going to prepare your soil by adding the fertilizers needed and moistening it. This can be done a couple weeks prior to planting. It's best to do that if you're wanting to add compost, so that way then the nutrients can start to work in before you plant. And on the day of planting, you're going to want to give your soil a mix so that if growing an outdoor garden, when the rain comes down, the nutrients are also bogged down into the soil, and so when you're giving it a mix, you're bringing those nutrients back up to be used by the plants. If growing an indoor plant, it's great to mix up your soil to loosen it so that way then it's not so packed when trying to plant your sproutlings or your seeds. Next, let's place it. So think about how big the plant will grow to be and space the seeds accordingly. This is pretty much done for you on the back of your seed packets. They give you a whole chart. They tell you the light requirements, the water recommendations, and how far you should space them and how deep you should place your seeds. Next, let's plant it. So follow the seed packet directions again. You're going to cover the seed or the sproutling with dirt and firmly pack it into the soil. Do not press so hard that you create a soil brick, but do give it a firm press so that if foot traffic or wind or any sort of unfortunate thing like that happens, your plant won't be pulled out of the dirt and killed. So now, caring for your garden long after you plant is the essential part, and is kind of what creates the garden for you, because now that you've planted, you only have sproutlings or seeds, you don't really see much in your garden. It doesn't seem like much, but come back in 2 weeks and you'll have some starts going, which is really the exciting part of gardening. So we're going to talk about watering. So you're going to determine how often your plants water and stick to a schedule. This can be done by referring to the back of your seeds again. Can also be done by feeling out how your plant needs water. If you are keeping a plant in your shower area, it's not going to be needed to be watered as much because of the moistness in the air from when you shower, versus if you're growing an outdoor plant that needs a lot of water because it's in the sun and it's really hot, you're going to want to water accordingly, but do stick to a schedule. Don't confuse your plants if you can. So I will show a little bit of an example based on indoor houseplants. So these are two different kinds and kind of the average kinds that you see around. You have your succulents, which are super easy to grow because they don't need a lot of water. And that's kind of the appeal to them. You water them about once a month, once every 3 weeks, and they do you just fine like this one. Versus something like a houseplant, an indoor houseplant needs to be watered about once a week, depending on the placement again, like I said, the shower, whatever. This one I do water just about once a week, if not once every other week, and it's doing just fine. So different water requirements will be needed. Same for something like a vine. If you place a cutting in water, it will develop its own roots, and this is another example of a houseplant. However, I don't need to water this one at all because it's self-sufficient in water. So certain things to consider like that when considering the water requirements that your garden's going to need and the schedule you can stick to that works with your schedule long after this COVID-19 is lifted. So the second thing that we're going to go over is feeding. So when I say feeding, I'm meaning fertilizer. Your plant loves it. Could use it. Promise every plant likes some sort of fertilization. There are different types. There's liquid fertilizers, such as these ones by Miracle-Gro. They're just a liquid, and you pump, and it gives the nutrients right then and there. You can do something like an outdoor fertilizer, which is what looks like these little rocks here. This is actually fertilizer. All sorts of different kinds. There's also manure that you can incorporate. Just depends on where you're planting and how often you're going to be fertilizing your plants, how often they require it, such like that. And I always recommend that if you don't have it on the seed packet or the spike that comes in the plant that tells you if you buy a sprout, getting a book that has all your local plants. So this one here, this one is called Ornamental Plants by Dr. Dwight Waite. He is local here to Ceres, California, and he talks about plants in the Central Valley, how to grow them, what they need, sun requirements, water recommendations, all sorts of things. These books like this are great and super cheap. Next is make sure that so trimming. Let's go over that for just a second. So always clean your trimming shears between uses to prevent diseases, just like needles in people. If you cut a leaf on one plant that might be suffering from a disease like leaf blight, and you cut another plant, that disease has been transferred to that other plant now. So it's really important that you wash with soapy water or a sanitization mix of some sort of kind, just to get those initial germs off the plant. It's best not to switch shears in between two different types of plants as well, because diseases again. So that's another important thing to consider. So starting your own garden is a very easy and rewarding way to use your free time during the shelter-in-place order. To summarize, starting a garden first requires some thought. Then you're going to consider the 3 P's of planting: prep it, place it, and plant it. And after you've successfully planted, you'll want to check back in on your garden frequently to ensure that you're properly caring for your plants. I hope that all of you are doing well in these trying times, as it is super easy to look at this situation in a negative light. It's important to also search for the positives, such as having more free time at home to start your own garden. Wishing you all the best. Thank you.